The ballroom at the Grand Plaza Hotel shimmered under crystal chandeliers, every table dripping in white roses and polished silverware. Laughter bounced off the marble walls. Waiters in black ties moved like clockwork. This was Victor Miller's night, and he wanted everyone to know it. Eleanor sat quietly in the far left corner of the room, her wheelchair tucked just slightly out of view. No one looked at her. No one dared to. Not when Victor had just taken the stage, holding a champagne flute in one hand and the microphone in the other. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice smooth and practiced, like the CEO he'd trained himself to be. "This isn't just a celebration of another successful year for Miller Development. Tonight is personal." He turned, hand extended toward the woman standing beside him. "Many of you already know Olivia Rodas, our new creative director. But tonight, I want to introduce her not just as a colleague, but as the mother of my child." Gasps. Applause. Laughter from the back. The camera flashes surged. Eleanor blinked, but didn't move. Her fingers tightened on the armrest of her chair. Her heart was hammering, but her face remained perfectly still. Victor continued, his eyes scanning the crowd, lingering for a moment on Eleanor, just long enough for her to catch the flicker of triumph in his gaze. "I've always dreamed of being a father," he said, voice trembling just the right amount. "And now, that dream is coming true, with someone who makes me feel alive again." Someone. Not the woman he built a business with. Not the wife who had shared his bed for 12 years. Not the woman who had lost the use of her legs after falling from scaffolding on one of his job sites. No. Someone else. Olivia beamed beside him, her hand cradling her small, obvious baby bump. Guests clinked glasses, whispered congratulations. Someone shouted, "About time." Eleanor still said nothing. But her lips curved, just barely. It wasn't a smile. Not really. More like the beginning of something. Because while Victor was busy soaking in the applause, he hadn't noticed the small camera Eleanor had planted beneath the stage hours earlier. He hadn't seen the envelope tucked beneath every guest's chair. And he definitely didn't know what was coming next. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 10 years earlier, if someone had asked Eleanor what happiness looked like, she would have answered without hesitation, designing a building from scratch with Victor by her side. They were unstoppable back then. Partners in love. Partners in vision. Two rising stars who had met in architecture school and built something far greater than just glass and concrete. Together, they had founded Miller Development. Their designs weren't just buildings, they were statements. Community centers in underserved neighborhoods. Sustainable housing with rooftop gardens. Buildings that made people feel seen. It wasn't just their work that inspired admiration, it was their bond. Their synergy. Victor handled the business. Eleanor brought the vision. And for years, it worked beautifully. Until the accident. It happened on the site of their most ambitious project yet, The Haven, a 12-story eco-friendly housing complex for single mothers and seniors. Eleanor had always insisted on being present during major phases. That day, she had gone up the scaffolding to inspect a load-bearing panel. No one expected the cables to snap. She fell 3 stories. The pain, she could handle. Even the surgeries, the months of rehab. What no one prepared her for was the silence that came after. Victor was there at first. He brought flowers. Sat through physical therapy. Held her hand when she cried herself to sleep from phantom nerve pain. But slowly, things began to shift. He stopped bringing his laptop home. Then stopped coming home early altogether. His patience thinned. His touch faded. His smile grew hollow. And the worst part? He made her feel guilty for needing him. Every time she asked for help, every time she forgot a meeting or missed a call because of her medication, he would sigh. Just loud enough. Just long enough. One night, as she struggled to roll herself from the living room to the kitchen, he looked at her and said, "I didn't sign up for this." She remembered the words more clearly than the pain itself. "I didn't sign up for this." It echoed. It stayed. She stopped asking after that. Stopped reminding him of her appointments. Stopped bringing up the empty seat beside her at work events. She buried her grief inside spreadsheets and floor plans, thinking that if she just worked harder, maybe he'd see her again. But he didn't. And then Olivia appeared. At first, Eleanor thought the girl was just eager. Fresh from design school, wide-eyed and ambitious. But she caught the way Olivia looked at Victor. The way Victor let her look. Like he wanted to be seen again, but only by someone who hadn't witnessed his failures. Still, Eleanor held back. Hoped. Until one evening, Victor left his phone on the kitchen counter. A notification lit up the screen. A sonogram. And the caption beneath it read, "Can't wait to meet our little legacy." That was the moment something inside Eleanor changed. Not shattered. No. Something inside her hardened. It started subtly. Victor began taking control over Eleanor's medications, telling her the doctors had made adjustments, that the side effects were making her foggy. He claimed he was helping her focus, helping her feel more like herself. But that wasn't what was happening. She began to forget things. Important things. Missed calls. Wrong deadlines. Names she'd never fumbled with before. At first, she blamed herself. Maybe the trauma had lasting effects. Maybe she really was slipping. Then came the financial decisions. Victor told her that handling the company books was too stressful for her now. That the board felt more comfortable with him managing the capital projects alone. That she should focus on healing, as if her brain had been broken along with her spine. Her access to business accounts quietly disappeared. Projects were reassigned. Her calendar was suddenly empty, then filled again with pointless meetings that led nowhere. One day, she tried logging into the Miller Development shared drive. Password denied. She reached for the bottle of pills Victor had refilled for her just days earlier. Then she paused. She took one of the tablets, stared at it. And decided not to take it. That night, she didn't sleep. Not from pain, but from something else rising. A thick, suffocating awareness. A creeping certainty that she was being managed. Muted. Martina, her physical therapist, noticed the difference the next morning. "You look sharper," Martina said, checking the tension in Eleanor's shoulders. "What changed?" "I skipped a dose," Eleanor replied quietly. Martina looked at her for a long time, her hand stilling. "Eleanor, are you telling me he's in charge of your meds?" "He says he's coordinating with my doctor." Martina exhaled slowly. "Let me make a call." That afternoon, Eleanor's doctor confirmed it. There had been no changes to her prescription. No new dosage. No reason she should be experiencing memory loss. Someone had tampered with her pills. It was no longer just emotional neglect. Victor was manipulating her body, her mind, her very sense of reality. The realization didn't bring her to tears. It brought her clarity. Victor wasn't just disappointed in the life they had now. He was erasing her from it, piece by piece. And if she didn't fight back soon, there'd be nothing left of her to save. The envelope arrived 3 days later. No return address. Just her name, written in blocky, deliberate letters. Inside was a photo. Victor. Olivia. Standing arm in arm in front of a discreet medical clinic on the east side. Olivia was visibly pregnant. Victor's hand rested on her stomach. Both of them were smiling. On the back, scrawled in the same handwriting. "This is what he's been hiding. You deserve to know." Eleanor didn't cry. She just stared at it, letting the image burn itself into her mind like a scar. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was fact. Everything she'd feared, everything Victor had made her doubt, was right there. He hadn't just moved on, he had rewritten their entire future. Given it to someone else. And now, he was preparing to humiliate her in the most public way possible. Eleanor had overheard his assistant on the phone a week earlier. Something about a surprise announcement at the upcoming gala. About how the guests will be blown away. Now she knew exactly what that meant. He was going to unveil Olivia like a trophy. Parading his mistress and unborn child in front of their friends, their clients, their investors. While Eleanor, his legally wedded, wheelchair-bound wife, watched from the shadows. That night, as the house fell silent, she wheeled herself into the room that used to be her home office. The door creaked, she hadn't been allowed in there for months. Dust coated the desk. But inside the bottom drawer, behind a false panel only she knew about, were the old company records. Archived emails. Contracts. Copies of Victor's authorizations. A flash drive from their early days, back when she handled the financials herself. Eleanor began to collect. She stayed up all night reviewing documents, printing emails, organizing timelines. Each line of data was a puzzle piece. Every lie had left a trail. And she was going to follow every single one. By morning, she had 3 folders, a full digital backup, and something she hadn't felt in months. Control. Martina arrived for their regular session and found Eleanor awake, alert, her voice steadier than ever. "Something's changed," Martina said, eyeing the folder stacked beside her. Eleanor nodded. "He's going to make a public announcement at the gala. And? I'm going to make one too." Martina raised an eyebrow. "I'll need your help," Eleanor continued. "Physical prep. Breathing control. Voice projection. If I'm going to speak in front of a room full of people again, I need to do it right." "You're serious?" Eleanor's gaze hardened. "I'm done being silent." Martina smiled, just a little. "Then let's make sure they hear you." The night of the gala arrived like thunder. The Grand Plaza Hotel was glowing. Every detail, from the golden centerpieces to the custom-lit Miller Development logos spinning on the walls, screamed perfection. Waiters in black vests offered glasses of chilled champagne to guests in floor-length gowns and tailored tuxedos. Victor stood near the stage, flashing his signature smile as he greeted donors and investors. Olivia hovered beside him, glowing in a soft pink dress that hugged her growing belly. Guests fawned over her with curiosity and awe. Eleanor arrived unnoticed. She wore a black velvet gown that covered the braces strapped beneath her legs. Her makeup was simple. Her hair pinned up. She looked composed. Regal. Unshaken. Martina wheeled her in through the service entrance. The room's soundscape buzzed with wine glasses, laughter, and whispers, but Eleanor only heard her breath. Calm. Controlled. Her plan was precise. 2 hours earlier, she had delivered unmarked envelopes to the staff, each labeled with a name and placed beneath every seat. They looked like part of the event decor, elegant and harmless. Inside each envelope was a printed document. A confession. A truth. At exactly 8:45 p.m., as rehearsed, the tech assistant Martina had bribed discreetly cued the presentation feed to switch input. The screen behind the stage flickered once. Victor didn't notice, he was too caught up in his speech. "Tonight is a night of new beginnings," he said, placing a hand on Olivia's lower back. "Not just for Miller Development, but for me personally. For my family." The crowd applauded. Olivia glanced down with modesty, as if she hadn't spent the last 6 months dismantling another woman's life. Victor continued. "It's been a journey these past few years. And I've been blessed to have found love again in the most unexpected of places." The screen flickered again. This time everyone noticed. The lights dimmed slightly. On the screen behind him, a new slide appeared. "Let's talk about the truth." The words were stark, white against black. Gasps rippled across the room. Victor turned, confused. "What the hell?" Then the footage rolled. A video clip, grainy but clear, played audio of Victor speaking on a recorded Zoom call. He was laughing with a close friend. "I mean, come on, man. She's barely even present anymore. It's like living with a ghost in a $4 million wheelchair. Olivia gets it. She doesn't need to be taken care of." Laughter. On the tape. From him. The audience froze. Then the next clip, Victor speaking with Olivia. "Once I have full control of the company and she's out of the picture, we can relocate. Start fresh. This baby gives us the perfect excuse." Whispers filled the room. That's when Eleanor moved. Martina pushed her slowly toward the front. The crowd parted, stunned. Some turned away in shame, others leaned in with awe. Victor's face drained of color. She took the stage without hesitation. Martina locked the wheels. Eleanor reached for the microphone. "I won't waste your time," she said, voice even and sharp. "You've just seen the man behind the tailored suits. The one who told me I was imagining things. Who cut off my access to our company's finances. Who tampered with my medication to keep me docile." She scanned the crowd. "I stayed silent because I believed in loyalty. In love. In redemption. But sometimes silence only feeds the abuser." A beat of silence. She held up the final document, the one filed with the court that morning. "This is my petition for divorce. And my formal motion to reclaim my 50% stake in Miller Development, as co-founder and primary designer." Applause broke out, not all at once, but from one table, then another. Victor tried to speak, but no one was listening anymore. Eleanor looked at him one last time. "You wanted a legacy," she said. "Now you've got one. And it's built on lies." She turned away from the microphone. And the room erupted. The headlines broke before Eleanor even made it home. CEO publicly exposed by disabled wife in shocking gala revelation. Victor Miller accused of medical tampering and financial abuse. Eleanor Miller's mic drop moment shakes industry. The video of her speech had already gone viral. It wasn't even supposed to be recorded, but someone, likely one of the guests, had captured it all on their phone and uploaded it to social media. By morning, it had over 3.2 million views. Victor's attorney issued a half-hearted statement, claiming personal family matters were taken out of context. But it was too late. The court of public opinion had already ruled. And this time, Eleanor wasn't the one being questioned. She was being celebrated. Within 48 hours, Eleanor's legal team filed a motion freezing Victor's assets, citing financial fraud and mental cruelty. Depositions were requested. Investigators were appointed. And Olivia? She vanished. Deleted her social media. Disconnected her phone. Rumor had it she flew to her sister's place in Oregon. Pregnant and humiliated. But Eleanor didn't care where she was. That chapter was closed. Meanwhile, Victor was placed on a leave of absence from Miller Development. Investors began to pull out. Sponsorship deals collapsed. And several staff members came forward with their own stories about mistreatment, coercion, hush money payments. Eleanor didn't speak to the press. Not at first. Instead, she focused on healing, not just herself, but others. With the support of her friend Martina and a few trusted colleagues from the old days, Eleanor quietly began working on a new project. Not another skyscraper. Not another design portfolio. A place. A purpose. Phoenix House. It started as an idea scribbled on a napkin. A rehabilitation and empowerment center for women who had survived abuse, emotional, physical, financial. A place with accessible design at its core. Where dignity wasn't just restored, it was built into the blueprint. And Eleanor, for the first time in a long while, felt alive again. She met with donors. Architects. Therapists. Survivors. She watched as the walls went up, not just around the center, but around her new life. One afternoon, standing in the nearly completed main lobby, Martina wheeled over beside her. "You built something no one can tear down this time," she said. Eleanor looked around. Sunlight poured in through the giant, slanted windows, her design. "I didn't do it to destroy him," she said softly. "I did it so I could finally stop surviving, and start living." Martina smiled. "You're more than a survivor, Eleanor." And for the first time in years, Eleanor believed it. 6 months later, the grand opening of Phoenix House drew a quiet but powerful crowd. There were no red carpets. No champagne toasts. Just soft music, warm lighting, and stories. Women from all walks of life stood in front of the microphone that day. Some spoke shakily. Others with fire. But every voice rang out in a space that had been designed, for the first time, for them. Eleanor sat just off stage, watching. She hadn't planned to speak. She wanted this day to belong to the survivors. The fighters. The ones who hadn't yet found their way out, but now had a place to begin. But near the end of the event, a young woman approached her, a girl maybe 21, shoulders curled in, cheeks still healing from something that didn't leave visible scars. She knelt beside Eleanor's wheelchair and whispered, "I'm only here because I watched your speech online. It made me leave him." Eleanor blinked hard. "You did the hardest thing," she whispered back. "You saved yourself." The girl nodded and returned to her seat. Then Eleanor took the stage. No script. No slideshow. Just her, a quiet room, and a truth that still lived in her bones. "I was once told that I was too broken to be loved," she began. "That no one would ever want someone like me again. That my future had already expired." She looked across the rows of faces, some tearful, some steel-strong. "And for a while, I believed it. I let someone else narrate my life. But not anymore." She paused, let the silence speak for her. "We don't have to be anyone's shame. Anyone's mistake. Anyone's victim. We can be architects of our own healing. Of new foundations. Of futures that don't need permission to begin." A hush fell over the crowd. Then applause, soft, then building, wave after wave of it. Later that evening, as the last guests trickled out and the building settled into its first night, Eleanor rolled out to the terrace alone. Boston's skyline blinked back at her, indifferent and beautiful. She pulled a photo from her purse, creased from years of being folded and hidden. Her wedding photo. She looked at it one last time, then gently tore it in two. Not out of anger. Out of release. She watched as the wind carried it into the dark. Then turned back inside, to the life she had built, the people she had lifted, and the future that, finally, was hers. A year later, Eleanor stood beneath the arched entrance of Phoenix House, her hand resting lightly on the warm stone. The sun was setting behind her, casting long gold shadows through the glass-paneled atrium she had designed herself. Inside, the place pulsed with life. Voices echoed from the community kitchen, where survivors and staff were laughing over dinner prep. In the therapy wing, a young woman played a soft melody on the piano, the same piano Eleanor once used to relearn finger strength after her surgeries. She closed her eyes. The pain wasn't gone, not physically. Some mornings were harder than others. But the ache in her soul, the one Victor had carved with silence, with manipulation, with betrayal, that was finally, miraculously, healed. She had learned something important in the rubble of it all. That sometimes, strength isn't found in rebuilding what was lost. It's found in building something entirely new. That night, Phoenix House hosted its first anniversary benefit gala. It was small, intimate, by design. No media, no grandstanding. Just people who believed in healing and justice, sitting around round tables under twinkle lights, eating food made by hands that had once trembled. Eleanor was the final speaker. She wore navy blue. No wheelchair tonight, she'd been training with braces and a cane, and while her steps were slow, they were hers. "I've been asked many times," she began, "whether what happened to me broke me." She smiled. "And I used to think it did. For a long time I thought I was shattered. That I'd never be whole again. She paused. But what I've learned is this: sometimes we aren't meant to go back to who we were. Sometimes, we're meant to evolve into someone stronger. Kinder. Fiercer. She gestured around the room. Phoenix House isn't just brick and mortar. It's proof that being burned by betrayal doesn't mean the end. It means the beginning of a different fire, the kind that warms, that lights, that protects. Tears shimmered in dozens of eyes. And when she stepped down from the podium, a standing ovation followed her, not out of pity, not out of admiration for survival, but for what she had created from survival. Later that night, as she stood on the terrace, the city humming beneath her, Martina came up behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't just change your life," she said quietly. "You gave hundreds of others permission to change theirs." Eleanor didn't respond right away. She looked at the skyline, at the reflection of the stars in the glass of her center. And she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "I used to think I was finished. That no one would ever see me again." She turned to Martina, eyes steady. "But now I know, I was never invisible. I was just waiting for the right time to rise." And she did. Not in anger. Not in revenge. But in power. And peace. Eleanor's story isn't just about betrayal, it's about rebuilding from the ashes. She turned humiliation into purpose, and silence into power. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a story of betrayal like this? Do you think Eleanor made the right choice to expose him publicly? Comment 2 if you were rooting for her. Comment 7 if you would have done something different. If this story touched you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs it. And subscribe to EN True Tales for more stories that don't just entertain. They empower. Stay strong. And we'll see you in the next story.